It seems you still haven't grasped that there is a line that cannot be crossed, Barkas said, his voice as even and flat as a desert horizon. Yet his face, usually a masterpiece of stoic patience, was contorted into a snarl of pure, feral fury. Talia tried to wrench her arm away, but the knight's grip was like iron manacles, pinning her in place. Barkas, shielding Gareth and Ayla like a devoted guardian, pulled Talia even closer until her face was inches from his. "How low do you have to sink before you are finally satisfied?" he hissed, his breath hot against her skin. "Is there no bottom to your petty spite? Do you think I've reached the bottom?" Talia threw her head back and let out a sharp, jagged laugh. "Oh, noble Lord Siorcan. Do you truly believe you have even the slightest inkling of what the bottom looks like? Don't flatter yourself with such arrogance." She leaned in, a sharp, dangerous smile playing on her lips. Unlike other men who faltered at her proximity, Barkas showed not even a flicker of arousal. There was only a profound, bottomless disgust in his eyes. Talia felt a sudden, violent urge to dig her manicured nails into those icy pupils. "From your heights, I must seem insignificant," she whispered, pinning him with a gaze that reflected a dark, swirling quagmire. "But I am far from finished. You will be the one to push me over the edge soon enough," she thought. But before I go, I will leave scars on your perfect future. It's only fair. Her eyes filled with a lethal venom. Barkas stared back, something dangerous and predatory flickering in the depths of his blue eyes. They stood locked in a silent promise of mutual destruction until a soft, plaintive voice broke the tension. "Barkas." The man instantly released Talia and turned toward his bride. Ayla looked so utterly wretched that it seemed to wound him more than any blade could. She reached out, fingers trembling as she clutched the edge of his cloak. I want to change," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please. Take me away from here." "As you wish," Barkas replied. He swept his arm around her shoulders and, without casting so much as a backward glance at Talia, led her toward the exit. It was as if he had erased her from existence the moment Ayla spoke. The madness that had gripped Talia evaporated in an instant, leaving only a cold, hollow despair. Jealousy and pain rushed in to fill the void. Yet, even as her world crumbled, she maintained her mask. With a deliberate, triumphant smile, as if she had won a grand victory, she turned and walked toward the terrace. The guests parted before her as if she were a leper. Ignoring them, she reached for a fresh glass of wine. But before she could take a single sip, Count Siorcan appeared and snatched the glass from her hand. "You need to leave. Now." "Why?" Talia reached for a plate of pomegranates, her tone bored and indifferent. "Didn't you hear? The princess told us to enjoy ourselves." "I'm not finished yet. I admire your steel, princess, but—" The count nodded subtly toward Gareth. "There is a beast behind you, and he is very close to breaking his chain." Gareth looked as if he were on the verge of drawing his sword. The veins in his neck were bulging, and his jaw was set so tight it twitched with every breath. He was a man barely holding back a massacre. Another time, Talia would have relished the provocation, but her strength was spent. She stopped pretending and allowed Count Siorcan to lead her away. They moved with a speed that stopped just short of a frantic retreat, disappearing from the hall and heading for the gardens. The carriage was waiting. Her knight opened the door, and Talia moved to step inside. But before she could reach the seat, a violent shove sent her sprawling onto the carriage floor. She looked up, gasping. Gareth had shoved her knight aside and lunged into the carriage after her. His face was a mask of unadulterated hatred. "We can barely tolerate your presence," he growled. His hands, rough and calloused from years of training, clamped around her throat. Her knight shouted from outside, demanding an explanation, but he didn't dare touch the crown prince. Gareth ignored him, his fingers tightening until the world began to dim. Talia thrashed, her movements frantic as she dug her nails into the bulging veins of his forearms. But Gareth was blinded by a rage so deep he seemed to feel no pain. He leaned in, hissing the words directly into her ear. I have endured you for so long. I have held back, again and again, for the sake of the crown. But I am finished being patient, little sister. Gareth's eyes, usually a bright, piercing green, now glowed with a hellish light. Don't look so surprised. We already hate you more than enough. Finally, he released his grip and pulled back. Talia collapsed, clutching her throat with both hands, gasping for air. A violent, racking cough tore through her lungs as she struggled to breathe. Her face was flushed, her vision swimming, but Gareth wasn't finished. Remember this, he said, his voice now terrifyingly calm. The fact that your mother is allowed to run rampant here, and the fact that a filthy bastard like you is permitted to walk these halls. It is all temporary. With a mocking, courtly bow, he slammed the carriage door shut and vanished into the night. As Talia struggled to sit up, she noticed that two of her nails, the ones she had so carefully filed, were snapped to the quick. Dark, sticky beads of blood welled up around the jagged edges. She stared at them absent-mindedly for a long moment. I'll have to grow them again, she whispered to the empty carriage. And this time I'll make them sharper. Sharp enough to pierce straight to the bone. A quiet, hissing laugh escaped her. She didn't know why she was laughing, perhaps she truly had lost her mind. Her knight pulled the door open, his face pale with confusion and worry. He looked at her as if she were a madwoman. Maybe he was right. Maybe she had been crazy for a very long time. She sank onto the floor of the carriage and let the laughter take her, a low, rhythmic giggling that lasted the entire journey back. In the days that followed, the Imperial court was a hornet's nest of activity. The crown prince and the first princess were preparing for their pilgrimage. It was a rite of passage for the descendants of Emperor Darien the Great, the man who had unified the Western continent. Traditionally, women made the journey before marriage, and men after their 20th year. But since the twins shared a birthday, Gareth had insisted they receive the god's blessing together. Supplies were being gathered, and a double contingent of the elite palace guard was being mobilized. As expected, Barkas had been appointed the commander of the expedition. Talia watched the preparations from her palace windows. Her gaze would slide across the courtyard where Barkas was constantly in motion. Today, under a soft, drizzling rain, he was pacing the grounds, personally inspecting the equipment, the horses, and the weapons. Talia rested her chin on the windowsill, her eyes locked on him. Barkas tilted his head back, looking up at the gray sky as if gauging the passage of time. The rain washed over his face, silvering his flaxen hair. The image was a ghost from her own past, etched forever into her memory. On the day she had first fallen in love with him, it had been raining just like this. Talia closed her eyes, remembering that day.